All right, good morning, everybody. Today is September 29th, 2025. This is the Manistee Blacker Airport Authority September meeting. It's September 29th, and I will call this meeting to order. Lindsay, could you please take a roll call?
Mr. Adam Downs? Mr. Walker?
Here.
Mr. Becker?
Here.
Mr. Jeff Downs?
Here.
Ms. Goodman? Manistee? Here. Mr. Picardi?
Here.
All right, thank you. Moving on to approval of agenda, I would like to add an item above public comment to accept a letter of resignation from Adam Dons. So that would be new number 5, or putting it right under public comment.
So moved. I'll support.
We don't need a roll call for that, do we?
Yeah, no, not a roll.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, thank you.
Were you going to put after FBO contracts discussion on manager?
Yes. Thank you, Barry. All right. Under FBO contract, I would also like to add discussion of airport director contract extension.
I'll amend my motion to. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, thank you.
I'll just mention, I now have identities for people online, so we have Stephanie Ward and potentially Stephanie Green also joining us.
All right, welcome, Stephanie. Welcome, Stephanie. Thank you for joining us. Okay, do we have any public comment? All right, hearing none. On to letter of resignation. Adam Dons has sent his letter of resignation to the board, and I will forward that to you, Lindsay, as clerk. Take an opportunity to read the letter of resignation. Thank you for entrusting me to serve on the Manistee Blacker Airport Authority Board since October 2023, and its chairman since January 2025. The board has gained 2 new members and is focused on working with airport staff and stakeholders to deliver meaningful, growth-oriented results while being a prudent steward of the public funds it administers. The airport has increased the number of passengers it serves over 30% by awarding a contract to Contour Airlines, recruited Enterprise Rent-A-Car to serve both area residents and visitors, and implemented a marketing campaign to increase ridership and local commerce, which was financially supported by the Manistee Chamber of Commerce and Economic Development, Contour Airlines, and the Downtown Development Authority, and Blacker Airport, and awarded an employment agreement to a new director. While it has been an honor to serve the Manistee community and authority, recent family obligations and new employment commitments will prohibit me from dedicating the time required to effectively contribute to the authority. I wish the very best and every success to the authority board, airport staff, and stakeholders going forward. Please accept my resignation. Respectfully submitted, Adam Dons. So, I don't believe we need to do any action on accepting resignation. So, hey, good morning, Miles.
Hi, Miles.
So with the board chair position being vacant, I'll step into the role as vice chair for this meeting. Any questions? I'm going to do my best, so please bear with me. Next, we have Enterprise representatives. Do we have anybody from Enterprise today?
I had a note from last month to put it on this one.
All right, seeing no one from Enterprise, we'll move on to the approval of minutes. We have in front of you the August 18th, 2025 regular meeting minutes, August 22nd, 2025 special meeting minutes, and the September 3rd, 2025 special meeting minutes. And I would look for a motion to approve those minutes. Do I have a second?
I'd second it.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. All right, moving on to the treasurer's report.
Did you just approve all three sets of minutes?
Yes.
Okay.
We have treasurer's report, August 2025, accounts payable, general fund. Hello.
Hello.
Morning.
And this is Joe and Stephanie Sprague,
Come on in.
Cadillac Aircraft Service.
All right. Susan, would you like to
Sure.
walk us through this, or Barry? What are we looking at?
I can do that.
I'm still scrolling through.
So you'll see, your accounts payable for August 2025 that you need to approve. There's really nothing out of the ordinary, pretty standard. So I just need you guys to approve the bills for August. If anybody had a question on anything that was on there.
So moved.
Have a second?
Second it.
I think we need a roll call for that, Lindsay.
Mr. Walker?
Yes.
Mr. Becker?
Yes.
Mr. Downs?
Yes.
Kaminsky? Yes. Mr. Picardi?
Yes.
Then you have your revenue and expenditures and your trial balance. Trial balance is just a summary of where you're at. And then, keep in mind when you're looking at that year-to-date, that ending balance, that, negative amount, that includes the $729,624 that we haven't been reimbursed yet back for August. So once you get that, you're pretty in line where I expected you to be at the end of the fiscal year. And we'll take a closer look at next month, where we're at with everything.
Okay. The timing on that reimbursement is within our,
Yeah, so
Expectations right
it's
now?
been working out really well. So like we usually pay it in the month, and then by the end of the month, we're usually reimbursed back.
okay?
And then once we get that back in September, then we'll go ahead and pay that September bill, or in October, we'll pay that September one.
So you need action on that to approve those financials?
Sure.
Looking for a motion?
A motion to approve the August financials.
I'll second.
Cindy?
And Mr. Walker?
Yes.
Mr. Becker?
Yes.
Mr. Downs?
Yes.
Ms. Kaminsky? Yes. Mr. Picardi?
Yes.
All right, thank you. We have one more thing, right? 2025 financial statement, or is that included?
That was included.
Okay,
More of it.
thank you.
Yep.
Anything else, Susan, from the treasurer's?
No,
report?
we're gonna do the budget later on. I see that's on the agenda later on, so.
Great. Look forward to it. All right, committee reports, discussion. The executive committee, had no formal meeting. Capital projects, any formal meeting? Budget committee, no formal. Bylaws, no formal. Transition.
However, there is bylaws to be approved.
Yep. Is that on there?
No, it would, normally would come up under the committee
Okay.
section.
All right, let's go through that. So the bylaws, were sent in your email, with red text as amended. Everybody have a chance to look at those? Was there any questions? Basically, a while back, we had discussed needing to, update the electronic meeting participation paragraph, to closely align with the Open Meetings Act. So in summary, during, the pandemic, I think there was a little bit more flexibility allowed with the Open Meetings Act for people to participate electronically.
Actually, prior to that, there was,
Okay.
based on some court cases that got formalized during the pandemic to allow it to be very open. And then when the pandemic ended, they actually closed what was open prior. So it is more restrictive now than it was prior.
Okay.
So that change was originally added that you could participate electronically in 2012. And now it's no longer allowed under the
So we don't have a choice.
No, we don't.
Okay.
Regardless of what this says, we have to follow state law, so.
All right, so I would be, I'm looking for a motion to, accept these changes as amended to our bylaws.
So moved.
I'll second.
Thank you, and I think we need a roll call on that, Lindsay.
Mr. Walker?
Yes.
Mr. Becker?
Yes.
Mr. Dant?
Yes.
Ms. Kaminsky? Yes. Mr. Picardi?
Yes.
All right, thank you. Anything else on bylaws? All right, the transition committee, did not formally meet. We've been very active in the transition world. Miles is here today. I think he starts tomorrow, right?
Well, Wednesday.
Great. Welcome, Miles, member of the public until Wednesday. All right, does anybody have any questions on the transition? We do have a discussion coming up, on, extending current director contract for that transition, so. All right, Barry, I'd like to turn it over to you for your director's report.
Okay. Back to screen sharing mode. Copy is here if you want hard copy. So no airport accidents or incidents, during the month of August. Generally, my reports looking back the previous month were pretty much at the end of September. There's some information from September here as well. GSA lease, there's been actually back and forth, so first time in a couple months on that, but that is still open. The new thing I'm adding here is because the county is floating through the airport a significant sum of money with a looming government shutdown occurring possibly within days. I'm not sure how that might impact both timing of reimbursement and also payment in general as it relates to things. This isn't the first government shutdown in the 17 years I've been here. In general, it hasn't impacted us before, but sometimes the rules change when they go through these things, and just something to be aware of that the risk I see, since we do have a contract, although they have the right to basically at any time end that, is just timing on the payment. So if it were to go on, I could see that staff not being employed or not being furloughed and not doing their job, because they're not essential providers of services in the government. So some things to think about as we enter the new fiscal year.
But just so everybody's aware, the big difference is how we receive the funding for the alternate essential air service compared to past. Before we did not have to float the money for the month prior. That's the huge difference.
Yes, previously when we were under alternate EAS, we weren't floating it, so this risk fell onto the carrier. Now it falls onto us. And then when we are under standard essential air service, then we're not even a party to any contract, so carrier is DOT. So yes, we are in a position somewhat unique from the past. So our annual, FAA Part 139 inspection, the physical on-site part happens September 17th. There's a 2 weeks prior where they online review all of the records, and then they come on site and do kind of a physical inspection of things. Don't yet have the results of that. There's a webinar scheduled with my inspector tomorrow. Miles will be attending with me, as well as my whole staff, to go through the results of that. The one thing I know that we're going to get written up for is that our fire truck is currently out of compliance. The nitrogen tank that powers this product called Purple K, which is a powder that gets dispersed. It's one of the tools of the truck. That tank has low pressure, and apparently no one north or including Grand Rapids will service that. We called like 20 different places. We knew about this for a month and we're working to get it done. We thought we had someone coming to look at it, and then they, at the last minute, flaked. What we ended up doing just after the inspection was we reached out to the manufacturer of the truck, and they did the same thing. They had their staff call everybody in the area, and no one would deal with it. So the manufacturer actually came, took the tank off the truck, and is now themselves taking it to places saying, please refill this. I don't know what the issue is, because it shouldn't be that hard to refill a nitrogen tank, but as soon as we say it's for a fire truck, everyone just walks away. Fortunately, two things that make this somewhat fortunate is because Contour operates 30 seats under Part 380, right? Technically a Part 135 carrier. They don't require ARF to be present. So it didn't impact any flights a few days before our shutdown, and we will have this addressed before flights start again. So, but we will be written up for it and put in some procedures to make sure this doesn't happen again.
Is it a special nitrogen tank?
It's somewhat special, but not really. You can't just swap it in because it has certain hardware on it that ties into the rest of the system.
Okay.
But it does have a filling valve that you should just be able to recharge it. But everyone wants to just exchange it. And it's like, well, we can't exchange it. Your tank is different.
Yeah. So we have a solution. It's being corrected?
Yes.
Okay.
By the truck manufacturer right now.
Are we expecting am I beating you to the punch on that, or?
Yes, there will be an expense.
Okay.
No idea what it would be. I don't think it'll be significant, although it's probably more expensive than it should be just because of the path we're taking to get it addressed. And, you know, we did this same thing a few years ago, and the company we believe that we had do it has no record of us doing it and refused to do it this time. Company that Traverse City says does theirs told us they don't do this. So it's been a mystery. Enterprise rental update. So this is a very much a bright spot on things going on here. Starting off with the bad news. I mean, last month I reported we had 10 rentals total in July. August we improved to 13. Right now they're probably doing 3 or 4 a day. So it's having a person here, and I have to say, and I've told the regional manager this at Enterprise, Alexis, who's their employee here, she's a rock star. I mean, excellent customer service skills, very helpful, working with me and all the staff here, and, it's been a pleasure working with her. So that has completely turned around since our last meeting, all because they've got the right place. So the issues that were there before are now basically all addressed. They're renting to all customers, FBO customers, public contour customers, not just airline passengers, which was the case before. And their booking hours online now correspond to the airline schedule, so you can actually drop off a car when the flight comes in at 9 o'clock at night, as opposed to before it said there was no availability after 5 p.m. If someone calls during a normal 8 to 5 business hours, Alexis will arrange weekend, after hours, everything to accommodate people. And I know you were successful in doing a rental.
Two thumbs way up.
I hope that proved successful all around.
Yep.
Because last month's report from you was not as encouraging. And then kind of a final update on our previous provider, Victorian Car Rentals. As of the beginning of the runway closure, they were no longer accepting reservations. Greg is selling off his fleet. In fact, I think most of the cars have already been sold. He's keeping a couple vehicles because he had a couple reservations out in October that he's still going to honor. But that is basically winding down. And if you drive by Victorian Carport, you'll see it says retirement sale. So. Moving on then to performance numbers. So starting with our passenger numbers for August, a total of 2487, slightly down from July, and that's often the case, is that August is a little bit softer than July, but they're usually pretty close, and they're by far the best 2 months of the year. And you'll see the comparison to the previous year. That ends up being a 56% increase over the previous year, which is obviously very good. And in September, I'll talk about September when I get to that slide. And then on the on-time performance side, when when Contour was here 2 months ago, they started talking about the changes they are implementing. The changes, in particular, the schedule changes, took effect mid-August. So half of August is kind of under the old and half is under the new. And I will say that since those changes took effect, performance has markedly improved. The numbers for August still reflect some of that kind of bad period in the middle of the summer. But really, since mid-August and now through September, they've actually been very, very good. Cancellations are not their problem, it's just the delays, and that's been the case. So I think the changes, part of it is the changes that Contour has put in effect, so schedule changes, trying to address things in Chicago that were causing issues. But also part of it is that we're now past that huge peak of summer travel, so everything in Chicago becomes a little bit easier to do as you get out of that big peak. You start seeing issues again in the middle of winter because then you get snow and winter issues that creep in, but we're kind of in that shoulder season that is much easier to operate. So, while that number doesn't look spectacular, it is so encouraging given the 2 previous months, and the trend is even much more positive. I want to thank Contour for what they've done to turn that around. And hopefully next summer we don't see a repeat when it gets busy in Chicago again. So, these are the individual month statistics, so you can see how many flights were delayed by how many, minutes, et cetera, and how that has changed over the period. the biggest key here is that worst one, more than 2-hour delay. June it was 22 flights, July was 36 flights, and August was only 4. So that really significant delay has come down. Moving on to airfares. So, here the numbers don't look quite as rosy. They're not what I would hope them to be, but they are what they are. So, I'll first just point out this line towards the bottom, change from 1 month prior. So the average fare out of here went up $40. In Traverse City, it went down a couple dollars. Grand Rapids went up about 40, and Muskegon went up about 20. And then you look at the average fare out of those airports. Right now, Traverse City and Grand Rapids are pretty much neck and neck, which historically has never been the case. Over the years, they have been getting closer as Traverse City gets more and more competition, which drives then down prices. So on a raw fare standpoint, you know, we're not as competitive as we would want to be, but the market economics of airfares out of Traverse City is what's driving that right now. The fact that we don't charge for parking and Traverse City and Grand Rapids charge a significant amount of parking makes up for that somewhat. So that's, you know, I think going forward is something we need to always keep at the forefront, that parking here is free and how that materially impacts what people pay, even though they don't see it when they make that initial upfront ticket purchase. And what's really interesting is that when you then include that average, you know, that range of average fares is pretty much non-existent. I mean, all 4 airports are within $20 of each other, and so that parking makes a big difference. Now, how many tickets you're buying per one car will move that average around. So, capital projects. As you know, we have a big project ongoing. Still no update on our airport layout plan. When I popped my head into the fall conference for a few hours one evening, for a long day of negotiations here, and talked with a few people. I didn't talk to anyone from the state at MDOT when I was there. But what I'm hearing is that there are many airports that are in the same situation, and it's just not a priority of an understaffed MDOT right now to get these things rolled out, which is unfortunate. But it's not holding things up, although it might have played a small factor in something I'm going to bring up shortly. So our big project that we're currently doing is this RSA safety area grading, runway 10-8 lighting, and new beacon. That project started on a week ago today. It's for the first 2 weeks is resulting in a closure of our main runway, and starting tonight at 8 p.m. The entire airport's closed for 3 days because they're actually working at the intersection of the 2 runways. So both runways will be closed the next 3 days. Hopefully, a week from today, Contour will be flying and all the runways will be open. The project itself still goes on for a couple more weeks after that, but all of that activity is outside of the area that is the runway safety area, so the runways can be utilized while that work continues. So now, issues that came up or have come up and are being dealt with. There are 2, both of which really resolve around the same thing, and that is the city has a water well in the middle of the airport. The water main from that well runs from the well out to, they've got a little building on airport property near 31. And, that area where that main runs is directly underneath the grading that is being done. The grading that is being done is to reduce the slope, so it is taking dirt off. Now, the result of that is, based on what the engineers have put together, is that the main will be about 3 to 3.5 feet below grade once the project's done, which causes concern for the city because frost and things like that. Now, it's I believe it's a 16-inch main. That's not likely to freeze, but technically it could. So everybody's working to address that. Now, one may ask, there's a water main through the middle of the project area. Why was this discovered on the first day of project? All I'll say is there's a lot of fingers to be pointed. I think everyone had an opportunity to catch this earlier, and for whatever reason, no one did. The city is blaming Mead and Hunt. Mead and Hunt is pointing back to the city for not doing certain things. At this point, I don't care who's responsible. It has to be dealt with, an issue, and we can. Blame is important. We can sort through that after the project's done, but now is not the time to be arguing about that, because if this doesn't get addressed, we potentially are canceling more contour flights and keeping runways closed until this is addressed. So there are risks involved in this right now. Last Thursday evening, I believe it was, Mead and Hunt got a proposal out to the city as to what their recommended solution is. We are still waiting for the city to give their go-ahead on that. The cost of that would fall technically on us, on this project, but it would be funded under the grant funding that is there. So, it's within like a 15% contingency type. It's technically not a contingency, but there's a little bit of built-in leeway. So we're waiting for that approval from the city so that can be blessed and go ahead. In addition, there is power lines buried out there that power that well. They're actually 3-phase, 480 volts, and until late last week, no one acknowledged ownership of those lines. Consumers said it wasn't theirs, the city said it wasn't theirs, the airport said it wasn't theirs. Finally, late last week, Mead and Hunt got to the right people within consumers, and consumers has now acknowledged that they are their lines. But in 2 places, those lines will be too shallow post-grading. So there's now sorting out, well, who's gonna move them. Technically, consumers does not have an easement for those lines, so therefore the FAA is going to push back on funding it through them, and it might be back on consumers, and to be sorted out, but those are the 2 issues that have come up so far. Any questions on that? Because I'm sure Miles will get to follow through on this.
The main, how many linear feet of the main are we talking about insulating? The whole thing?
No, and that gets in,
Ballpark.
I think the number I saw was 2,000 feet.
Okay.
Mead and Hunt's position on this, and I would support them on this, is that we're only gonna insulate sections of the line that we've done grading on. There are other sections where it is currently buried at 3 feet. We're not going to pay for them fixing an existing problem.
Sure.
One could argue if it's an existing problem and it's okay currently, why do we have to worry about this at all? But that's part of that discussion to go forward on.
So, Stephanie, Stephanie Ward, are you on the call? Can you hear us?
She said she was gonna be driving in the car. That number is her phone number, so I think she's
Okay.
probably not able to respond. She's on mute right now.
No problem.
Can you hear me now?
There we go.
Yeah, I've got Andrew here with me as well.
All right, so are you two leading this discussion on the water main? Are we taking the lead on it? Is the contractor taking the lead, or is the city taking the lead?
I've been working with the city, so I've been taking the lead of it more. The contractor has been made aware of the issue. And then they've provided a theoretical price to do it, to put the 4 inches of foam over it. But right now it's in the city's hands. We're waiting to hear back what they're gonna be okay with, if they're gonna be okay with our proposal.
Okay. So is this gonna dramatically impact our project budget? And are we gonna have to figure that out, or is it within the contingency? Thank you, Jeff.
There's not really a built-in contingency. The FAA typically allows 15% grant amendment amount, and it should fall within that amount. I have not talked to MDOT yet. I've been waiting for the approved mitigation method with the city, and then get a final price from M&M to complete the work before I go to MDOT.
Has anybody asked the question yet if it makes more sense to relocate the well off of the airport?
That is much more expensive.
Okay,
Much.
okay.
And
All right.
talking
You
with
guys have it under
our
control.
water department, within Mead and Hunt, they recommended for anything bigger than a 6-inch pipe to just insulate it rather than relocate a line. Due to cost.
I don't see any of that stuff insurmountable. The biggest problem, from what I've heard, is trying to get consumers to expedite something. That is gonna be the hiccup. So I don't know whose contact to try to expedite that, but that generally is gonna be where your problem's gonna lie, in trying to get something done before the snow flies.
And Andrew, do you have an update on consumers?
Yeah, so I sent them Friday afternoon, I sent them a drawing of the locations that would need to be lowered. I haven't heard back. The guy I talked to was with their engineering department. He's gonna reach out to their field representative for the area, and discuss it with him, and then get back to us on that.
Yeah.
Anything else on that? All right, thank you.
Okay, no update on the T-hanger doors, and, what I'll add there is that, correct me if I'm wrong, Stephanie, your plan is to, work with the board at their next meeting to, along with Miles, and kind of establish a direction for the capital plan, going forward with the board at that meeting. We've delayed our fall meeting with the state called a MAP meeting, that was scheduled for like roughly 10 days from now, till early November, so that Miles could have some input along with the board on setting these directions, so. And so this may change in priority as a result of that. Is that correct, Stephanie?
Correct. The big issue is going to be is you have your, what used to be called bill, but now it's called IIJA, funding. We have to be able to commit to that by the 23rd of October as far as how we're going to spend that money. And we had planned to use that here on the hangar door. So we do have an important decision to make, if we're going to move forward with this or not, and then be able to have it out for bid before March. So that's an important discussion that we need to have. Otherwise, we risk potentially losing that money if we don't commit it to a project.
And that date is following our next meeting, so that's how those things tie together. Okay, contour service update. Again, I talked through a bunch of this already. Services improved, enough said there. On the employment side, August was up 54% versus 2024, which again is phenomenal. And we actually have the seats to fulfill the demand. We can fill them. September looks like they're going to be up roughly 5% versus a year ago. But you have to consider that because of the shutdown, there are 30% fewer days in September they were flying. So 5% up on 30% fewer days is still very good. October looks good. It's a little bit harder to predict right now. It's partly impacted by 5 days of closure, so that's roughly 16% of the days of the month we won't be operating, so that does obviously have an impact. And now we're comparing against Contour of a year ago. October was their first month, so there was a lot of transition stuff going on. So the comparables will start looking different as we move forward into the new fiscal year. So far, our year-to-date employments are up 39% over a year ago. I'm starting to cut current projections down for the year. I'm now predicting 9,200 instead of the 9,400, partly because that original 9,400 didn't take into account 2 weeks of being closed for service, and so that's where we stand. In looking at bookings going out, we're still running strong. So August, the number of seats booked during the month was up 44% versus the previous year. We will start seeing in September and then October, and as we go through this closure, those numbers being depressed artificially. This will probably be the last time, well, it will be the last time I show this, but it'll be the last time you'll probably see a reference to Frontier. But just kind of to recap how we did this summer versus Frontier's summer here. Our load factors in July were comparable to what Frontier did. August a little bit lighter. The Frontier was operating with slightly larger aircraft, so there were more seats available. So the total number of passengers were still well behind of where we were in 2011. And then kind of a projection for September, which kind of also shows that, although again, September has 30% fewer days of flying. My last slide is marketing update. So the summer Manistee cash giveaway promotion that Adam had put together completed with the end of service on the 22nd. It was scheduled to go through September, so it ended a couple weeks early. we'll get final numbers from the chamber once they, pull together how exemptions and things like that, went for those, vouchers that were handed out. And then the last thing is, I've been notified by Right Side Design that they no longer intend to be providing their services to the airport after the end of this month.
That seems abrupt. Is there any commentary along with that?
It's been coming. Brandon's kind of, Right Side Design really now focuses pretty much exclusively on clients who are tourism authorities. So they do Manistee, Silver Lake, I can't remember the other ones, Cadillac. The airport doesn't really fit that mold, and Brandon really has kind of been doing it for the last couple of years as more of a favor to me. And with my departure, it's a good time to move on.
Are there anything that Right Side Design has done that, I wouldn't refer to it as proprietary, but is there anything in there that we need to have the keys to speak to, so to speak? Does that make sense in what I'm asking?
Yes, I know what you're asking,
Like the
and
website? Yeah, any of that.
the website, Orchard Beach, so, yes, but different, owner. I will work with Brandon and make sure that we get copies of all the graphic artwork so that we've got files to work with. If we want to do that, simple things in-house, we'll be able to do it, because we'll have, graphic files. So, good.
How much
No.
were we paying them a year? Was it like 25,000?
There was a monthly.
Depends on funding.
There was a monthly, fee for doing just general things, and then a lot of the digital advertising flowed through them. So anything on the Meta platform, so Facebook, Instagram, went through them, that they paid that, whereas Google platform-based ads, I've been, And I guess one other thing is that I have submitted to Contour, essentially documentation for a $25,000 reimbursement for this calendar year. We should be getting back from Contour $25,000, which is their marketing allocation. And the agreement was is that we would spend it with their involvement, and then they would, at the end of the year, basically pay their amount for that. So that's something that should come in and get wrapped into year-end. $25,000 does make a difference, bottom line. Any other questions? That is my report.
Thank you, Barry. All right, moving into old business, fiscal year budget, 25-26. We have a budget.
So I'll talk to this. So there's two columns here, two different budgets. One is what the board essentially approved as the draft budget. I think that was at last month's meeting, actually. And then another is a budget that more closely aligns with the current direction around how the airport is operated. I kept the relevant numbers, transfer in general fund, et cetera, identical, so there's no impact to the county. It's just moving numbers around to reflect closer to reality. My opinion is that come roughly probably January 1st, after Miles gets his feet wet and gets involved in this, that Miles is going to want to present to the board a revised budget that actually reflects everything as it stands at that time. So from my opinion, the board today could formally adopt either of these, and I expect that there will be a revision later. My primary goal in this was to show that through cutting certain things, you can make the current county allocation support the airport, even though the exact counts for where things might end up might be slightly different. The funds are there to operate the airport for the next year based on what the county has committed. So again, I think you could approve either of these, formalizing what you approved last month as a draft, as formal, or something that is at this point still a work in process, because really it needs Miles and really kind of some of the learning experience over the next couple months of how this change in operations will actually materialize. So I think you're going to have, as I said, a revised budget that's going to come later.
So what do we need to do today with the budget? We need to approve the budget?
Need to approve some budget.
Susan, what do you think?
I'd like you to do the 8678281 because that is what was approved at our board meeting. Otherwise, we'll have to do a revised budget. County board have to do a revised budget for the supplemental budget. And since you're thinking it's going to get revised in January, then we would have to do a revise to the county in January.
Well, we'll see how that all
Right, I know,
stands up.
but,
We always adjust at the end of the year anyway.
right.
8,678,281, that's the budget without an FBO.
Right. But I mean, we can, if you approve that, what I'm saying, like, work with the new director, we can, within the airport fund budget, we can move those expenses to a different line item or the revenue to a different line item. We just wouldn't change the dollar amount at the end. That,
So you're approving the budget as a number,
right,
not line by line.
Yes.
right,
That gives you the flexibility,
Right.
like Susan said, to take from one line item to the other.
Move it
So it's
around,
that bottom line number that would be,
So I'll make a motion to adopt the $8,678,281 for the fiscal year 25-26.
Yep.
Motion by Jeff,
I will support that.
second.
and Mr. Walker,
Yes.
Mr. Becker,
Yes.
Mr. Dot,
Yes.
Ms. Kaminsky? Yes. Mr. Picardi?
Yes.
Great. Anything else on the topic of the budget for now? All right. Next, we have new business. We have, two contracts to discuss with, a fixed base operator candidate, Orchard Beach Aviation. So, I think what we should do is first, do you have a preference if we do fixed base operator part 139 first? Do you want to do them at the same time? Kind of a big
Probably.
sandwich to eat in one bite.
Yeah, I mean, probably the fixed base, I mean, that's where the disagreement.
Okay. Let me pass that out then. There's that. one that, is coming around is the most recent copy that was sent to you via email. And the next page that's coming around are revisions that are being suggested by Orchard Beach Aviation. Is that right, Barry?
Correct.
Okay.
And I didn't actually include on the revision the big items, but
Okay. That's just coming back around.
yeah.
You guys want a copy? I'm familiar with it. All right, everybody got one? Okay. So, let's start off by saying that there has been a lot of discussion back and forth, and, there's been a lot of work into getting us to this point. So, today, our task is to vote on signing a contract with Orchard Beach Aviation. That is your decision as a board member. As a group, we need to come up with the final contract that we want to vote on, because we still have some revisions in front of us. So, the big packet that we handed out from Lisa is the most recent, copy, and we have some revisions to consider from Orchard Beach Aviation. So Lisa had a conversation with the lawyer on Friday. Do you want to give us a summation or how that impacts?
Yeah, none of the changes that his final changes were more schematics, you know, making the sentence at the top of a paragraph versus the bottom. We did some taking out of items, and so that adjusted our, formatting. And then, you know, if it referenced something else, then, you know, we had to change that. I think, there wasn't anything, any details of what was agreed upon that was changed.
Okay. So there's a sticking point compared to what we sent out to what we're talking about now, is the fixed, fuel equipment lease fee of $22,500 a year. There was I guess a mismatch of understanding when the two groups walked away from the negotiating table. The $22,500 was put back into the contract when we sent out this most final revision, and then that became identified as a no-go. So my understanding is that Orchard Beach Aviation is not interested in moving forward with the contract if there is a fixed $22,500 fee.
And I can try to explain my rationale. So, I will say it was a difficult set of negotiations, and there were a lot of things thrown back and forth. So, I'm not surprised that we walked out with slightly different understandings, although I think it was the day after, days after I talked with Lisa, and I thought we were on the same page at that point. And drafts that I reviewed last week didn't include that, but then kind of 11th hour got put back in. I can understand why. Understanding this is the forum to have that conversation. But from our perspective, and I'm speaking myself as well as Joe and Stephanie here, the board put out an RFP for services. As part of that process, the board had an improved fee structure, and we basically built from the ground up a model as to what it would take to operate this airport given those parameters. It was kind of a surprise during negotiation that the parameters were changing. set whatever fees it wants, but I'm not going to hold to a bid quantity based on a set of information if that information changes. So that's part of this. The second part of this, I'm going to bring up the spreadsheet that I put together on Friday after thinking about this. Screen. Because I think some of this is lost in perspective when you don't actually look at real information. So I pulled so currently Orchard Beach is operating things, and while the contracts are structured differently, how they pay for things is different. The RFP asks for a fixed price. The current model is fixed price plus kind of a usage fee, so number of hours plowing is multiplied an hourly rate. So what you pay from one December to another December depends on how much snow it makes. So that kind of goes away in the new paradigm. And other things were changed and cleaned up as well. I mean, it's not 100% apples to apples comparison, but it's pretty close. So what I did is I pulled the invoices that Orchard Beach has billed the airport basically for the last 2 fiscal years and totaled them up. So that includes Part 139 work plus the general airport maintenance work. And fiscal year 24, that amounted to just under $327,000. Fiscal year 25, obviously we don't have September, so I did kind of past 12 months, so August through September of 24, and that total is $341,000, a 4.5% increase over 24 to 25. And then I put out there what this proposal is, and it's 353. It's a 3.5% increase, or roughly $12,000. And now we're being asked to, oh, well, now we're going to have to pay the airport $22,000 more, which means the net is actually a decrease of what you're currently paying. That's just not reasonable in our opinion. So it's kind of for all of those reasons that fee being added is not acceptable. In the negotiation, it became clear that there's a lot of history that's, kind of gone. So I'll talk about the existing fee. The airport has currently what it's called a fuel flow fee of 17 cents a gallon. That was created back in 98, 99 when the airport replaced the fuel tanks at that time. The airport had to take out a loan from the county to cover that expense, and that fee was implemented as a fee to pay back the county for the capital that was the fuel farm. That took roughly 10 years for that to pay back the county. And then, instead of, I'm editorializing here a little bit, so forgive me. Instead of taking those funds going forward and allocating them for their kind of original intended purpose, which was to pay for the capital of the fuel farm, the airport decided that to maintain no increase in county subsidy that year, well, we'll just convert that over to general fund revenue. And so now going forward, a fee that was created for one purpose has now become an airport general fund revenue source. Now, 20 years later, 10 to 15 years later, it's starting to cause concerns that the airport has a unfunded, potentially an unfunded liability going forward of a fuel farm that will not last forever and no revenue stream to maintain it. And now is looking to create one on its fueling provider, Orchard Beach. When it had created one and decided to divert that revenue to general fund purposes. And I will say this is a pattern that has occurred over time. Another example of that is the passenger facility charge that the airport had. Again, back in 98, 99, when the city withdrew from the airport authority, that agreement was that the city would continue to fund capital improvements at a rate of $10,000 a year for 10 years. As we came to the end of that, and seeing that that funding source was going to go away, created the PFC at that time. And the intention was that that PFC would continue to fund capital projects. At that time, there was a separate capital projects fund that had money in it that would pay our match on federal grants, would do the little things that are not federally funded. A few years into that process, budgets were tight, and we started diverting that PFC essentially to general fund budget purposes. So it frustrates me that we're in this challenging negotiation, and the FCO is being asked to rescue the airport, in my opinion, for decisions that have been made over time, when there were other potential solutions at that time. So I'm done editorializing.
Thank you for that insight, Barry. All right, so, can you tell us a little bit about, under paragraph, so, understand, strike part B, fuel equipment lease, $22,500 paid annually.
So the rest of these are, for the most part, although there may be one or two that are a little more significant, are to me to clean up the wording to better match the intent. So in paragraph C, the portion I struck, and I'll read it. Well, I'll read it as it originally was. A fuel farm lease fee of 17 cents per gallon as defined by the Airport Authority Street fee structure, except when and if the airline purchases fuel in excess of 1,000 gallons per month and accepts fuel sold to or used by lessee in excess of 1,000 gallons per month. I'm not sure why that language was put in there. I broadly know, and it ties into the third paragraph, which is trying to create a pricing structure that will work for the airline. But I don't think that wording, A, is necessary, because it's covered in the third paragraph, and B, doesn't really make sense because the board, in its fee structure, can't set specific rates for different players. It has to adopt a rate and apply equally to everybody. So if some other user on the airport were to buy 1,001 gallons of fuel, the way this is currently worded is they would be excluded, but that's not allowed under federal grant assurances. You have to basically provide a basic level playing field to everybody fairly. So calling that out for the airline and for Orchard Beach doesn't make sense. If you want to call it out, then it should be for everybody. I tried to simplify it by just saying there's an initial fuel farm fee of no more than 17 cents, because this is all talking about it being lowered. And if the board comes up with a fuel flow price schedule that has tiers, 17 cents, drops to X, drops to Y, then they can publish that, and the language is fine. It's just no more than 17, because that's what we're looking for, is we want to know what the cap is. So a risk that we're concerned about is that this year the fuel flow fee is 17 cents, and next year you make it $1.17.
Sure.
And we want language in there that maximizes that. If you want to go lower to incentivize the airline, we don't care. It's your money at that point. So that's the logic on that first half. I crossed out the C attachment for required forms. There is no form. There's never been a form. So that language is from the current agreement, and there's never been a form. So it doesn't make sense to keep it unless a form existed that was attached. And then one other little thing here is that I was proposing, and this is kind of something in your favor, actually, is I was proposing that the airport should have the ability to raise the fee over a period of 4 years. I wanted some protection as to what that max would be. I was suggesting a 10% annual increase. The language here was just a 10% for the entire 4 years. I think 10% for 4 years kind of is limiting, so I put that back in. So yes, that could be 30-40% increase over this time period, and that would be acceptable to us. So I think you should have a little more upside. As it relates to these fees, just kind of a broader thought on this is, I would recommend that one of Miles' tasks over the next couple of years is to actually look at comparable fees for other airports. Look at what a fuel farm cost estimate might be. I mean, during negotiation, numbers were just thrown out without much basis in fact. And then, start adjusting these fees for their intended purposes going forward based on what the competitive marketplace is and what the actual needs are. So the second part here, so as we went through negotiations, we had this fuel flow fee that, again, was originally created for one purpose, over time has become for a different purpose, and we were kind of talking past each other because I was talking about you already have a fee that is designed to pay for the equipment. You're just not using it that way. While I was being told, well, we need more money to pay for the equipment. And I said, what we need is not to repeat this 4 years from now, when all the players at the table will be different and no one will know that history. So let's rename our current 17-cent fuel flow fee to be a fuel farm lease fee, to clearly state what that fee is for and what its purpose is. And then let's add a fuel flow fee so that there's some revenue coming to the airport. And so this is on top of the 17 cents. So, we're proposing, an additional 6 cents. And again, I think over time that can be looked at, and is that the right number? Honestly, the reason I picked that is the other RFP response from Thornair. In their proposal, they had a 23-cent fee. They're proposing it, we'll match that. break it into two. So again, now going forward, it's clear, fuel flow fee, airport general funds, fuel farm lease fee, pay for equipment. Less confusion going forward. And then the other changes there are pretty much identical to the first one. Paragraph 3, so in looking at how the airport has done this in the past, so our previous alternate EAS carrier, public charters, during their 8 years here, for a period of time, asked for a reduction in fuel flow fees. The board granted that. At the time, I believe the fee was 10 cents, and the structure was you pay the full fee for the first 1,000 gallons, and then anything you purchase above that is at a lower rate. At that time, it was 2 cents. So the idea here was to recreate something similar. And as I explained that, it was a step-based, whereas this language kind of implied if you go over 1,000, then retroactive, all gallons are purchased at the lower price, as opposed to the lower price kicks in at 1,001 gallons. So changing if the airline purchases in excess of to for airline purchases in excess of, I think clarifies that intent, or the intent as I saw it. And again, going back to how the airport has done it. Because if you interpret it the other way, so again, something that the committee knows from the discussions, Contour, in their first year of service, has on average purchased about 1,000 gallons a month. So if you were to interpret that change as it applies going forward to everything, you're essentially asking Orchard Beach Aviation, who currently charges 75 cents Contour, $1.75 to the public. You're basically asking Orchard Beach to forego $9,000 in revenue. For going forward, and the airline might not change their behavior at all. So Orchard Beach is giving Contour a price break, and Contour's doing nothing to improve their service. For them to improve their service, they need to be buying more fuel here, and that's what this is intended to be is, okay, if you buy more fuel, now there's incentive because they'll save 65 cents from Orchard Beach, and then whatever the authority might lower its fees by. Okay, that is all of those changes. All right. And I'm sure I lost a lot of you halfway through that, so sorry.
Okay, I heard something prior to the meeting, and there's a history of the fees, structure, and why, as opposed to the rental lease agreement, if you will, of the fuel farm. Correct? Or did I mishear something?
I didn't understand what you said.
Well, so it's basically you're looking at an either or. So if we were to eliminate the 23 cents, the 22.5 could come back into play, possibly. And you do the math, that's a little over 100,000 gallons of fuel you'd have to sell, which is substantial. If you had Contour on the
Yep.
that would not probably be an issue.
Well, no, it would. At 10 cents a gallon, like a gallon of Contour doesn't go very far, but.
Yeah, but I thought I heard something to the effect of why this structure was put in there originally. You were explaining to Dylan.
Yep.
That's what I'm getting at.
And I thought I was explaining that is that was the fee structure was put in place in '98
Okay.
to pay for Fuel farm.
Okay.
Um,
The Kiplinger version comes through quick.
It was meant to pay off the loan that the airport took from the county to pay for the fuel farm.
How much was that loan?
My recollection, it was $100,000.
And that was 20 years ago?
26, 27 years ago now.
And after it was paid off, then we went in a different direction, using money instead of back into a fund, basically. Or should have been putting it into, yeah,
Yes, again, me editorializing, every year at budget time,
right.
our number one goal is to make sure the county doesn't increase, if possible, their contribution. So we find a way to balance the budget, and when revenues free up, they go to general fund to make that happen.
All right. Other questions?
I want to take a quick minute. You got a minute?
Can I ask a question that really doesn't have a whole lot to do with the contract? You mentioned PFCs. I know we were trying to renegotiate or go back into being able to get those again.
Yep.
Where are we with that?
We haven't moved forward on that. I mean, the board has authorized that Mead and Hunt start that, and it will need to be one of Miles' first pass. Let's do that. Quite frankly, my focus the last few weeks has been getting this addressed. Not something that is 6 months out, although 6 months out with a 6-month lead time also makes it fairly critical.
When we looked at our fuel flow fee on the budget, 18,400, that's at 17 cents a gallon, not 23.
I believe that, yeah. 23. I think I was incorporating what I knew at the time. Because it's roughly 80,000 gallons.
That's what it is.
And something I'll add while we're waiting for participants to come back is, if you remember back at the January meeting, Adam brought in some acquaintances of him who gave the board some information about, from their perspective, opportunities that the airport has. And one of the notes I took from that meeting, which I found very interesting, and I think partly explains the challenges we face, is the comment they made is, for a FBO to be viable at an airport as a standalone operation, you need to be selling 250,000 gallons a year. And we sell a third of that. And that's why, for an FBO to be viable here, it needs the additional revenue that we're talking about through these contracts to kind of combine resources to make it work. We're not big enough for a typical FBO, given the volumes of fuel we do, to make that sustainable.
Take an opportunity to step away for a minute for bio break. Like, anybody that needs to do it, also do it.
That would be a good time.
Yeah.
And we're down to a handful of people, but Joe and Stephanie are here partly to, hear all this, but
Sure.
also to introduce themselves. The board would like to hear from, I mean, the committee has had hours with Joe and Stephanie, but the rest of the board hasn't. So if you wanted you know, to hear about who the intended owners of Orchard Beach going forward are, they are here to talk to you.
There's a lot of Stephanies here today,
Yeah.
virtually or in person.
Right.
Saw that?
S-E-R-A-G-U-E.
Thank you. Put it in the
I'm a little bit confused.
No, oh. So,
Preston's in,
oh, he is, okay.
can you wait just a minute, please? Is Susan gone for the?
Yeah, I let her go back to you.
He sends a text to Eric at all, huh?
No, but I will when we finish. Well, that consumer stuff, we'll, talk to Commissioner Gustad and just kind of give him the old,
Thought of reaching out to him,
yeah,
but he hadn't made contact, so
Okay.
he wasn't necessary at the time, but it
Yeah.
wouldn't hurt.
it won't hurt. I think it'll, you know, it could actually just help to,
All right, informal recess is done. Go ahead.
All right. Eliminate the 22.5 to be paid annually, okay? I don't know, we should not get hung up on the 10% on paragraph 1 of C and paragraph 2 of C. We want to increase flow. You know, it's all about, we're not trying to do anything special here. We're trying to, you know, incentivize everybody to, you know, just eliminate those two, that 10%, because we're talking minuscule amount anyway. I mean, you look at 10% of 17 cents.
But if you do it annually, that's 30%, so.
We're not,
That could be, I mean,
I don't want to get into micromanaging that.
I just think that, again, I'm arguing against myself here, but I think the authority should have the ability to at least keep pace with inflation if, over the period of this contract, on some of these things, and I just want there to be a cap. So, if you decide not to, that's fine, but I think you should at least have that ability. Every budget year is tough.
We're going to have to figure out whatever the market does anyway, correct?
I mean, it makes sense that you should be in line with other airports, but, you know, there are always circumstances that make cases not apples and apples to apples, so you can always justify.
Yeah, but again, I don't know why I'd want to lock myself in from either end. I just don't know why. Why would I want to put that contractually to where I am saying X? You can't go above or below whatever the X is.
Well, because I have to know what exposure I have to cost increases, and I've got the potential that the board could essentially, and again, I'm partly reacting to the tone of the negotiation process, where it seems like.
But we're at a new day.
I know, but again, part of the tone there was a sense of the FBO makes way too much money from fuel sales, we need to capture as much of it as possible. And I'm just looking for a protection to make sure that that's giving you flexibility, but provide some protection.
I think the farther in the contract, you know, we're also, there's a term in here that the amount that we're gonna pay, Orchard Beach every year for operating is limited to 2.5%. So it's pretty boilerplate, I think, to have increases set in these agreements. And limiting to 10% over the life of the contract is minuscule. I think 10% annual increase is a fair, to set the tone of the
Okay.
next 4 years.
What would you like, Mr. Chairman, for the contract?
So what I would suggest mechanically is, that if we are in agreement on the terms of the, edited page 3, that a motion be made to, authorize the board chair to accept this contract with the revisions on FBO page 3 in place of our page 3.
And I,
Because they're the same,
I suggest that be the board vice chair under the current circumstances.
Well, you don't need a name,
it's
because
moving,
he's gone.
functionally,
That is another change then.
Yeah, that's
It's minor, but just
Yeah,
trying to make
I hear you.
sure.
So, functionally, I'd be looking for, to put this page into place, because you guys are good with the rest of the, and if there's no more other suggestions, that's how functionally we can move forward. And then I would say that we open it up for proper discussion under Robert Rules of Order. And at that time, I would also invite Joe and Stephanie, if they have anything they'd like to say, to speak to the group before we vote on this. Does that make sense? All right. So I am looking for a motion, to accept the edits to page 3 with the addition of crossing out Part B for $22,500 paid annually, be replaced into our, revision of the contract that was sent out before.
I'd make that motion.
Wait,
Oh, sorry.
wait, no, I got a question. So I'm trying to figure this out, so sorry if I'm being ignorant on all this. I'm trying to understand what you're saying on this BA, on this here, for no more than 10% increase for the life of the contract. What were you saying you wanted to be put?
I don't know, I just don't know if it needs to be there, is my thought process. I mean, I'm certainly
So
not gonna.
not have a cap on it?
Yeah, well, either way, I mean, is it necessary is my thought process.
From our business partners across the table, it's necessary from their perspective, because next year, when we set the fuel flowage fee and the, fuel farm lease fee, they don't want us to say, we're just gonna add $1 to the top
Yeah,
so
but-
that we can,
Okay, but
Fine,
why would any logical person ever wanna do that? Because you're gonna stifle any increase in your fuel, because they're not gonna, are you gonna go to Wesco? Or are you gonna go to, the tribes?
except I understand what you're saying, but
It doesn't really work that way, because we would just have, we would price the fuel at market and just now be turning over a much larger percentage of that delta to the airport and making less money, which would not be financially viable. So it wouldn't increase the fuel price, because that's driven by market dynamics of what other airports in the area charge, but it would cut revenue significantly.
and
If you don't have a competitive price, you aren't going to sell it. Correct?
Correct, that's why I'm saying, we would have to still charge a competitive price, we would just owe the airport $80,000 more.
if this,
Yep.
if it were a handshake agreement, then yes, we could go by the word and grace, but it's a contract, so I think it makes sense to keep it in there.
So Cindy, do you understand what,
Okay, I do, but I have another question then. So Barry, when you were talking about this, were you talking about the same thing, but not doing it over the life of the contract, but
Yeah,
help us to do more, no more than 10% increase per year?
Correct.
Right.
The 10%
And
over.
why would you not wanna do that? Because, I mean, that's better wording than what's in here now.
No, right. What I think, or what Jeff was proposing is he was proposing to take the cap out altogether, was his, suggestion.
To me, that almost comes across as there's a lack of trust between people,
And,
is how it comes
and
across
quite
to
frankly,
me.
at this point, there is. And that cause may no longer be relevant, but it has a lot.
Can there be something put in there, no more than a 10% increase? I would do what Barry suggests, per year,
Which is,
Says 10% annual.
or annually, but instead of annually, you're saying per year of the contract, right, every year, for
No,
the next 4
that-
years?
That's what it
I
says.
added annual mean per year.
Oh, gotcha, okay, I thought, okay.
Before that, it was just for the life of the contract.
Okay, I see, yours is in the yellow.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm sorry, I missed that right there. Can there be something else when they're providing, I don't know how it would be worded, inflation and all that kind of stuff, providing, that there's other extenuating circumstances that it would have to, that it may exceed a
Be
10%
adjusted?
at any time? Huh?
Be adjusted?
Yeah. That it may need to be brought back. I don't know how I'd word that. Do you understand what I'm saying?
I do, but I think 10% is gonna be
Planning,
enough
enough to,
to handle
handle that.
anything we're gonna have over the next.
What you're looking at, and correct me if I'm misstating this when I say this, so we're not looking at, let's use the $5 a gallon, just as a generic thing. We're talking about $5.23. If the market goes up and it becomes $7 a gallon, it's still $7.23. If we wanted to adjust that, it's not gonna be more than 10% on that 23 cents. You following me?
right, okay.
Okay. Am I explaining that correctly?
Yeah.
Okay. So you got a motion? Did you get a second?
I'm looking for a second.
I'll second.
Thank you, Jeff. Okay, further discussion.
I love how Robert have all the discussion.
The way it always
I
is.
understand what you're saying.
Just the way it always is.
It almost has to be that way in some of these conversations to understand what you're talking about.
Joe, Stephanie, good morning. Would you like to take an opportunity to say anything before we vote on this contract? Thank you for coming here today, and thank you for working to get us to this point so far.
Yes, thank you for having us. I don't know what else to say. I am very excited. We're, obviously, I don't know if any of you know what we do, but we have a maintenance shop and a flight school in Cadillac. So we have Cadillac Aircraft Service, and we've been part of Manistee for a really long time working with Barry. And it's always been in the back of our heads that this would be something that we really want to be a part of. So I'm really excited.
Yeah, the excitement, there's, fully understandable, there's a massive learning curve. I think I got a fantastic mentor to help us through that. So, big learning curve, and very interesting to be a part of the negotiation. Meetings. Helps me understand, why decisions are made, and some decisions we can sit in the back and like, well, there's so many minds that are involved in these things. So, the excitement's huge. I think I have a ton to offer this there. Yeah, bringing our expertise with the maintenance and airport operations and business management, I think we got a lot to give.
Thank you.
I'll just add one thing to what, so, I've been working with Joe for as long as I've been here, actually, and, both Joe and Stephanie are people that I value their integrity, honesty, and there aren't a lot of people that I would want to turn my business over to. These are the people I do. And as it relates to the future of this airport, you're replacing me, who's a former tech geek out of California, keep people that actually live and breathe aviation, who have a passion for it. And I think that is a huge step forward for this airport, bringing in that type of resource to operate Orchard Beach and the airport going forward, or at least for the next 4 years.
Thank you, Barry. Please call a roll vote.
Mr. Walker?
Yes.
Mr. Becker?
Yes.
Mr. Dodd?
Yes.
Ms. Kaminsky? Yes. Mr. Picardi?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. We will get that signed up and presented for final approval from Orchard Beach Aviation. Next, we have the Part 139 contract,
No longer called that, but
colloquially known. All right, let me get back in here.
so I have a page on that too.
Yes, thank you. So I'm gonna pass around the county's most recent revision. And then I'm also passing around Orchard Beach Aviation's suggested revision.
Kept a whole bunch there, George.
Yeah.
Thank you. All right, Barry, why don't you tell us about your revisions here?
So, I mean, I have to admit that I should have caught this earlier, as opposed to this morning when I was rereading it again, after the final version came through. But sometimes when you read these things, you read them with knowing what the intent is and not actually reading the words. And when you actually read the English, it doesn't necessarily mean what the intent is. So specifically on the first part that is struck, we currently operate under alternate EAS. We have a contract with DOT for another 2 years. If we, at the end of that contract, were to go back to standard EAS, there is no contract for standard EAS because it's DOT and airline. So the wording here talks about such service provided to the airport authority under the terms of a contract or similar form of contract existing between the authority and the United States Department of Transportation. Well, 2 years from now, there may not be any agreement between the authority and the Department of Transportation because we went back to standard EAS. And that then doesn't make sense. The intent here is that if we don't have air carrier service because alternate or EAS ceases to exist, we don't need all of these services. And therefore, the airport doesn't need all these services and therefore should have at that time the option of terminating the agreement. Not tied to a specific contract between DOT and the airports or a similar agreement, because it's really the existence or non-existence of the airport. So that was my rationale there. And then the second kind of continues that. It talks about the aforementioned contract, and I just replaced that with alternate essential air service or essential air service shall end, then the authority shall have the option to terminate this agreement. That's what that set is about. Then the next is, for the life of me, I could not figure out the language, the English of what that lose comma was. And I had removed it in my comments, Lisa, but it ended up coming back, and so I'm trying to remove it again because it just doesn't flow. So this is third line from the bottom of that paragraph 2. first lose comma. So I'll try to get back to the beginning because it's a very long. But should the authority lose, comma, stop operating as Part 139, the authority upon 1 month's notice to Orchard Beach may terminate. Lose what? Was it funding or was it Part 139?
I think it was loose funding is what we had. I'm just trying to look up the old.
Okay,
You can replace a comma with or. Should the
but
authority
in the
lose or
previous,
stop operating.
but it's already covered, then the authority, because we talk about losing alternate or essential air service, and if we lose them, well, then we've lost funding.
Right.
So it just was a word there without what it applied to being clear. So to me, it's should the authority stop operating under Part 139, and I'll skip the next thing that I've crossed out, the authority upon 1 month's notice. So if you give up Part 139, either because you can't afford it, you can't, it's not necessary because you don't have air carrier service anymore, you have, the right to terminate the agreement. So that last cut is, so it's, all those other things are still true, but this was also there. Or be cut in, so we're talking the authority, or be cut in funding or income such that payment of the obligations under this agreement is no longer financially feasible. So from my perspective, if the airport wanted to get out of this agreement, they would just have to tell the county, don't give us what we're asking for, then we can't pay for it, and now we can end this agreement. Well, if that's what you're getting as a protection, then I want protection that says, oh, if I have a financial shortfall in revenue and I can't meet the obligations, then I want to be able to terminate. Either both sides should have some risk or neither. So that's the one change in all of these that I think is a little bit, I'm asking for something, because as I reread this, that seems to me to be too one-sided. Now, if we were trusting each other, I don't think that the authority board would play games like that to justify a early end of the agreement, but it's partly what contracts are for, is to have the wording to protect both sides.
Questions?
So, does that make?
Does everybody understand Barry's revisions? Functionally, I think, what Barry's saying is if our airport operation changes to where we no longer need the Part 139 services, we can end this contract under the terms, but we can't basically just say we don't have the money, so we're not gonna pay and end it that way.
If we don't have the funding coming in.
Yeah.
That's the only
I
reason we
mean,
would ever.
I think this, when you and I had sat and talked, that was what, this is the wording you had told me that we had talked about. So that's why it was added. It was lose or stop operating. So if we were to lose essential air service or
I interpret
stop.
as losing Part 139, not essential air service, but again,
Okay.
that's why
That was wording that you had me add when we sat down to go over this contract. It's fine, I mean, it doesn't matter, I understand your point, but I also feel like, as we sit here today and we agree upon these two contracts, we have to come to an understanding that we are all going to operate in good faith. I mean, if you're gonna go into it with that we're here or they're here to screw you, I mean, there's always just going to be that underlying tone that's never gonna go away. So we have to stop that.
Yeah, we are here to serve the public.
Right.
And we're using those dollars to help accomplish that. You really have to go out on a limb to try to think anything else. And if the funding stops, I mean, we're not a monster county, we're gonna have to stop the program.
Yep.
No matter what that is, when that is, if that is.
But the funding you're talking about is essential air service funding,
Correct.
not the county deciding they don't wanna give as much.
Correct.
I think
But
that'd be
this
the only way,
wording
yeah.
Well, but I don't
implies-
believe anyone sitting at this table would go, okay, termination of this agreement, let's find a way we can get out outside of
Again, I
this.
understand that, and as I said, when I read this previously to this morning, I was reading what I knew the intent was, but now I'm focusing a little bit more on the wording. And quite frankly, all of the issues, I think, that have led to this lack of trust have, gone away. So there's not, I really am not worried about this. But I think it is cleaner and more explicit being tighter, but I can understand. And don't take my comments as showing a continued lack of trust. That doesn't exist, and I don't think Joe and Stephanie bring that into the table, will bring that to the table. But we are what we are.
Okay, so where are we?
Mechanically, I'm searching for a motion to substitute the, paragraph number 2, now under termination of agreement with OVA's suggested language into our revision of the document sent out.
You change a word to or not?
No, that was
Accepting,
taken out.
accepting as presented,
As presented.
front of you.
I'll motion to accept as presented changes to the agreement.
I'll second it.
Thank you. Open discussion. Stephanie, Joe, anything? Okay, thank you. Lindsay, please call a roll.
Mr. Walker?
Yes.
Mr. Becker?
Yes.
Mr. Dot?
Yes.
Ms. Kaminsky? Yes. Mr. Picardi?
Yes.
All right, thank you. We'll get that signed.
No, thank you.
Thank you.
I will get them updated and so that they can all.
Okay, thank you.
So how do we approach the empty chair now, or empty seat?
The
We'll
bylaws,
advertise,
Okay.
if that's what you're asking.
he's asking about the chair.
Yeah.
Oh,
Are you asking about chair? Yeah, the empty seat.
The bylaws state in the absence of the chair, the vice chair will carry the duties. So because he's resigned,
I got that.
until we have another organizational meeting, I'm the chair.
I understand that. How long do we go?
We will get the resignation to the clerk,
county clerk.
the county clerk, and she will advertise, for the vacancy. And if we can get it soon, right, we would have time before board, because we're not till the 28th.
Might have time to get it for October.
Yep,
Yeah.
so we may be able to have it filled,
At our October meeting,
right,
until the duration of the term expires.
correct,
Oh, it takes over the term. Gotcha.
yeah.
And
A partial term.
and the organizational meeting is in January, so.
Annually.
So we're stuck with Dylan is what we're trying to tell you.
For 3 more months.
Dylan's it.
All right, thank you, everyone.
Fine leader.
We have another order of business, regarding Barry's director contract. We had voted in August to authorize the chair to negotiate extending the contract through a transition period so that, we can make sure we,
To the end of January,
to the end of January.
which now, since Miles is on board, in my opinion, doesn't make sense. And something less than that, but more than nothing,
Sure.
should be there.
Do you have a feeling?
Please.
Like how long?
I defer to you, I mean,
Oh.
I'm the one who works with whatever.
So what I would be looking for, I think, would be a motion. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So, we had an informal discussion, Barry and I, of kind of just saying, are you gonna show up to work on October first? And, I think what we had discussed was, let's take it a month and evaluate. Probably everybody understands it's not gonna be till January, but for the purposes of today's discussion, through the end of October, and talk about it at the next meeting.
So, I mean, and I'm fine with that, if that's what, the board wants to do. I had suggested maybe we just switch to some sort of hourly, how many ever hours Miles thinks he needs my time, fill it that way. But if you just wanted to go month to month, that's also fine. But I will remind the board, I mentioned this last month, that I have this vacation that starts October 20. I'll be leaving here, flying out here in the morning of the 24th and coming back November 9th. So you're paying for a month, but you're not gonna get a full month, so.
Could we go then October and then take out your vacation and then do the remainder of that month in November? You know what I'm saying?
I do.
And then, so we pay you for the month, but it would be served between October and the remainder of it would be whatever in November. And then at that point, just throwing this out there, if Miles still felt like I want Barry on a retainer basis, then we could go to, you know, an hourly or a flat,
We did that
whatever.
with, Mr. Kaminsky.
Yes. That way, you're then available if he has questions but you're not tied to coming in. Just a thought.
I like that.
Yeah, I think that's,
It's a good
very
idea.
good suggestion.
So we're taking, that's still monthly, so we're basically saying
Well, for,
4 weeks,
you're-
spend your time in October and spend your time in November, as it comes up to 4 weeks.
yeah, so you'd be paying him a monthly for this month, but the services will be between October and November due to his vacation.
Functionally, mechanically makes sense to you? Okay.
And rates, but it can be the current rate. I don't think it's less. It's not really a
Don't
big.
even go there.
How about 10%?
Okay, so I'm looking for, well, we already approved the contract through January, so I don't know. I mean, it's really gonna be when you submit notice, you work with Miles, submit
Because
notice
there
of when it ends.
I would just make a formal,
Right, there is no written
right,
document right now that has signatures on it that reflects anything, so.
I would just make the motion and then you don't even really have to have,
Do we need a written document for this?
I mean, I can put something together,
Or is
it's pretty
it just
basic.
extension of the current?
The current has an end date, so, I mean,
Which is January,
no, just
October 1?
September 30th.
September
30th,
30th,
okay.
yeah.
So, whatever you think is reasonable, I just don't want to.
Okay, so tell me you're gone October 24th,
Leave Friday the 24th, come back Sunday, November 9th.
2025.
So, really, November 21st would be the final date if you extend it the 2 weeks past, right?
Up to Thanksgiving.
Yeah. So if you want to just extend his current contract through November 21st with the stipulation that he, you know, he'll have 2 weeks off or whatever,
And we can address it at a future airport authority meeting.
November 21st? Okay, I'd be looking for a motion to extend Barry's contract through November 21st, 2025.
So moved.
Could I get a second, please? I'll second. Thank you. Lindsay, how about a roll?
Mr. Walker?
Yes.
Mr. Becker?
Yes.
Mr. Dunn?
Yes.
Manistee?
Yes.
Mr. Pingardy?
Yes.
Great. Thank you so much. Let's go to comments by authority members.
All right, I will say something. It's been an interesting and trying few months here. And I want to thank Adam for his service here. No one person does anything on their own. It's a group effort, it's a team effort. And he has helped lead us to jet service. He's helped lead us to enterprise. And also the incentive for the Manistee cash is what I'll refer to it as. Again, it's not any one individual, but it was a team effort, but he had a significant role in pretty much all three of those. And I thank him for his service in that. We do have a new day, and keep moving forward. Thank you for serving in that capacity.
George?
I must say, it's been very interesting moving in from just a mechanic and guy on the street, so to speak, to voting and learning about finances and everything, and it's been interesting, challenging, and educating, and it's a lot of fun, too.
Fun.
It's gotten more difficult.
If you want to call it that, yeah. But it's all good, and I want to continue with it. Definitely like the airport authority.
Thank you, George. Preston?
I'm glad we've got a lot of things sorted out. I think we should get back to kind of our goals and where we want to be headed and be on a clear track, because we had so many moving parts. Now that we have some things in place, we can really get some things done.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I think it's gonna be good now that a lot of this difficulty, although there's still a lot ahead of us, it's kind of now behind, so that we can move forward, and I'm looking forward to what we got going on next and move forward and hopefully do good things.
Changing leadership is never easy. It's not. So welcome on, and thank you for your service as well, which you're not gone yet, but.
Lisa, do you have anything for us? No? Miles, I'd like to welcome you. I'll give you this opportunity to have a bonus. You can tell we're pretty informal here right now, so if you have anything, welcome. If you want to talk after the meeting, we'll be available as well.
Yeah, no, just excited to start Wednesday, and yeah, it's just gonna be interesting.
Yeah.
Excited to work.
So, on that note, we've got some big transitions happening. As authority members, please make yourself available to help answer questions and support. Please be aware that it is a transition time, so try not to, I guess, not get in the way is the wrong term, but, be helpful, with whatever you can. Barry, thank you so much for your years of service. I know we got you a few more days. We'll probably be thanking you several times during that time. Welcome to Miles. Get you onboarded. Whatever you guys need, just make sure you're reaching out between these meetings. If we need to pull something special together in order to make a decision, we will. But otherwise, let's try and be nimble on our feet and work together. And get this place back up and running. We have a major construction project going on as well, so, thank you, everybody, and, watch your emails for the next meeting. And with that, I'll take a motion to adjourn. Okay, I call it adjourned. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Great job, Dylan.